Welcome to the final news bulletin of the week. I'm Askar Sharliyev with the latest updates from Kazakhstan, and these are the top stories. A mother and her 7 children are evicted from their apartment in Shymkent for a debt of only $3,000. OSCE media representatives criticized the situation with freedom of speech in Kazakhstan. Unhealthy statistics: 7,000 people have been illegally placed in mental institutions across the country. On Friday, Shymkent authorities evicted Olga Larshina from her apartment. In return, the mother of a large family announced her intention to settle right on the street next to the city administration. Her housing was confiscated at court orders for the debt of $3,000 the woman had to pay for a mortgage deal.
A Shymkent mother with many children is deprived of her housing. Olga Larshina and her 7 kids are evicted from their apartment upon the court order. Bailiffs are already working at the premise. For some reason, first they cut the phone line and only then started to inventory the property. Children's clothes, household items and furniture are taken to the yard. 3 years ago, Larshina decided to take a mortgage. A friend offered her realtor services. Larshina agreed and signed an uncertified receipt for $3,000, which was later found and certified by a notary. Eventually, the mortgage deal fell through. 3 years later, the realtor sued Larshina, saying she owes her money. In the end, court ordered to evict Larshina and her children from her 2-room apartment, which was already sold at an auction for $17,000. According to the lawyer, the amount is understated, which is why an action was filed to the Shymkent District Court. The attorney holds a document stating that the hearing on the suspension on the eviction and confiscation of property will take place on December 5th. This, however, didn't change the intentions of bailiffs. I will hang myself before I give away my apartment. My entire life I kept it for my kids. Even the judge said I could repay the debt in small installments, but I was not given that opportunity. In protest, Larshina plans to settle right on the street next to the city administration, if she will end up evicted after all.
Standing up for their rights to housing, defrauded real estate investors in Astana held their first protest action after the 140-day-long hunger strike. On Friday, people announced a string of pickets planned for 3 straight days. The city authorities allowed the actions, but only on the outskirts of Astana to avoid spoiling its perfect look created for the OSCE summit.
Defrauded real estate investors intend to use banners in 3 languages to draw attention of the OSCE summit participants. The owners of the capital's incomplete housing demand the resignation of Astana Mayor Imangalitas Magambetov and Prime Minister Karim Asimov. They promised to deal with the problems of co-investors and mortgage holders, but didn't keep their words. We don't need corrupt government, mayors and state officials. We need young people who will work for the people. I believe current authorities should leave because they are impudent and poorly treat their own citizens. A little over 100 people have gathered outside Astana for a rally. Authorities warned them that only silent protest is allowed. The action lasted for a half an hour and city officials ignored it once again. This prompted co-investors to announce a mass hunger strike of 500 people if nothing will be done within the next 3 days. Neither the executive nor local officials have initiated talks with us in the last 140 days of the hunger strike. This is a cynical attitude towards people, and the whole thing could end up in the Guinness Book of Records. The mass hunger strike will end on the closing date of the OSCE summit, but pickets and protests will continue. Protesters intend to try Astana Mayor Magambetov on the international level for banning rallies on December 1st and 2nd next to the Palace of Independence, which will host the summit of the OSCE. In the meantime, another group of activists with petitions has once again bombarded the office of the government with appeals from Astana residents.
6 influential citizens of Kazakhstan appealed to Swiss general prosecutor bringing corruption charges against President Nazarbayev's son-in-law Timur Kulibayev. The news, as well as the confirmation of the launched investigation against Kulibayev and Arvin Tiku, was verified to us on Friday by the Swiss lawyer Bruno Depreur.
I confirm to you that I am in charge of a very an enormous file. I have been mandated by 6 Kazakh citizens who are a very important person who have decided to denounce to the Swiss justice certain activities of Mr. Kubiliev and Mr. Tiku. And we have prepared very, very intensive and long documents with many details in which we demonstrate that these peoples and probably unknown persons defrauded the state of a lot of monies and used the Swiss banking system to money launder the money. So we did that in April or May of this year, and the Federal General Attorney of Geneva decided to open an investigation.
According to Bruno de Pro, back in September, the Swiss general prosecutor agreed to freeze a number of documents in various banks, as well as assets of Kulibayev and his associates. Reportedly, the general prosecutor is looking into deals that led to the laundering of nearly $600 million on Swiss accounts. Timur Kulibayev, his collaborator Arvin Tiku, and several of their associates are subject to investigation. Presumably, Kulibayev received money in the form of bribes, as well as income from the fraudulent sale of state-owned oil and gas assets between 2000 and 2005. At the time, Kulibayev served as board chair of Kaztrans-Oil and later deputy board chair of Kazmunaygas. Kaztrans-Oil controls the entire transportation infrastructure of oil products and natural gas in Kazakhstan, while KMG is a holding in charge of state oil and gas assets.
The fact that you have a big reputation, or you are very rich, or the fact that you are parents to the member of the government don't exclude at all that the Swiss authorities decided to organize a trial in Switzerland. Because the crime, if there are crimes which has been committed in Kazakhstan, here in Switzerland it's sure that it's practically sure, which is my view, that money laundering has been committed, and so if the money laundering is demonstrated in this country, the accused people can be object of a trial.
For the first time ever, Pentagon and the U.S. State Department warned the Congress that the new portion of secret documents set to be released next week by the whistleblower WikiLeaks could seriously damage Washington's relations with other countries. There is a great chance one of them might be Kazakhstan. On Wednesday, Reuters reported that next week WikiLeaks will release secret documents containing corruption allegations against senior officials of Central Asian states, Russia and Afghanistan, among others. According to the news agency, 3 sources familiar with the U.S. State Department cables held by WikiLeaks say these allegations are major enough to cause serious embarrassment for foreign governments and politicians named in them. At the moment, it is yet unknown whether documents will contain any information about Kazakhstan. Despite WikiLeaks' sole purpose of opening governments and releasing important state documents, no one is trying to hamper with its operation or block the access to the site. In Kazakhstan, though, reporter and editor of the newspaper Almaty Info Ramazan Yesergepov was sentenced to 3 years in prison for publishing internal communication records of the National Security Committee. On Friday, the illegal nature of this arrest was discussed in Astana by the OSCE Media Freedom representative Dunya Mijatovic, who addressed a new portion of criticism towards Kazakh authorities and their treatment of freedom of speech.
During the press conference on Friday, the OSCE Media Freedom representative Dunya Mijatovic found no new words to describe the situation with the freedom of speech in Kazakhstan. The reporters are persecuted, publication of oppositional newspapers is blocked, there is no access to anti-governmental websites, and the work of independent companies is suppressed.
Raising with the current government from the beginning of my mandate, hoping that we will have some positive light at the end of the tunnel. But when it comes to any compliance or media freedom commitments, there are.
Luckily, the press is still allowed at press conferences, unlike sessions of the NGO's review forum dedicated to the freedom of speech. Journalists were asked to leave, although there was a lot to listen to, since 58 speakers registered for the event. Each of them was given the floor for only 2 minutes, and almost everyone repeated Mijatovic's claims. At the same time, earlier in the day, another session sounded more like an official propaganda. The fact that you have one of the best democracies in the OSCE is definitely a lie. If nothing has changed regarding the freedom of speech during the chairmanship, what could happen after its expiration? Dunia Mijatovic doesn't know while journalists trust their feelings.
Возможно, закручивание гаек.
Breakdowns and closing of newspapers are possible. It is, of course, a pessimistic scenario, but I'm afraid it could happen. There simply won't be a goal to show some loyalty towards the mass media. The review conference will last until November 28th, somewhat summing up the results before the summit. However, there are already more talks about what was not achieved. The paradox, which will be undoubtedly felt by the heads of states during the event, is that Kazakh authorities essentially call their failure a breakthrough.
On Friday, activists of the Uralsk branch of the unregistered party Alga Maksat Aysautov revealed to the web portal Respublika that the organization's leader Vladimir Kozlov could soon become a target of an information assault. Apparently, an attempt was made to persuade Aysautov to appear on local TV channel and criticize the oppositionists. The activist claims the authorities are preparing a number of similar appearances on national channels by former supporters of the party leader.
On Thursday, Aysautov received a call from an alleged policeman Nikolai, who informed the activists that the head of Uralsk branch of the political party filed a suit against him. After meeting in person, two men in civilian clothes told Aysautov he should speak on television against the leader of the unregistered party Alga Vladimir Kozlov, not fearing any consequences. I respect Vladimir Kozlov and I will not speak against him or the party Alga. My appearance was scheduled for a local TV station TDK42 and a national channel Kazakhstan. I joked that perhaps I should go straight to the major nationwide broadcaster Khabar, to which said it can be arranged since actions against Kozlov are prepared everywhere.
The number of instances when people end up in mental institutions for wrong reasons, including their oppositional views, is rapidly growing in Kazakhstan. The issue was discussed by human rights activists in Astana on November 26.
7,000 Kazakh citizens have been illegally hospitalized to psychiatric hospitals. The shocking statistics was revealed at the press conference in Astana. This is becoming a trend and we called this press conference to stop it. We analyze this problem, we want to talk about it because it is something that should not be. As an example, political activists recall the story of Ataras resident Yuri Agay. He was placed in a psychiatric clinic due to financial disputes with his former wife. Agay says this was arranged by his ex-wife friends who worked in the clinic. I was all tied up, like in the concentration camp. They shoved an iron spoon in my mouth and stuffed me with drugs. I experienced something that you would only see on TV. Indeed, this is not an isolated case. Doctors are also involved in a scandal with an attempt to involuntarily hospitalize a deputy chairman of a well-known organization in the Karaganda region, the Miner's Family. Police officials told duty doctors to make a false diagnosis of my mental health, but they disagreed because I was fine. The democratic community is concerned as President's administration is fighting dissent using Soviet totalitarian methods of the past, namely putting people into psychiatric hospitals.
Last night, about 70 passengers who were waiting for their departure from the Almaty airport to Astana were outraged since their flights were delayed for more than 12 hours. Among those left waiting for the departure were several experts and representatives of NGOs who were scheduled to take part in the OSCE Review Conference on Human Dimension. Those who did make it on time to the event discussed the observance of human rights and freedoms of movement and migration. This was already the third OSCE conference before the summit, with the first two taking place in Warsaw and Vienna.
The conference was attended by the heads of OSCE institutions and representatives of 56 states. Most of the issues discussed have been already raised at a prior meeting in Warsaw, including media freedom, intolerance towards migrants, and struggle against human trafficking. According to activists, the organization itself doesn't always take their statements into account, while review conferences, as a rule, never produce expected results. Nevertheless, human rights defenders hope their recommendations will be eventually read by the OSCE summit participants. I think that people are foremost interested in migration issues due to recent developments in Kyrgyzstan when all neighboring countries closed their borders. Secondly, it is the freedom of speech, assembly and association.
These were all the major news for the day. Join us next week for more. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.